Yes, sirree, Bob. This is what we've been waiting for. We got the buy-ins from yesterday. We have a full slate going on today. So welcome to the show. I'm Chris Pardo. We're here about 4 o'clock Eastern time. So whatever time zone you happen to be in, whatever you're doing right now, thank you very much for listening. We totally appreciate you listening to the show with us. So anyway, I'm Chris Pardo. We're on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We're also on Mile High Radio for our friends out in the Colorado area. And of course, we podcast on most of the major podcast platforms such as iHeartRadio Music Podcasts. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and a few others, most of the major ones as well. So welcome to the show. Thank you very much for listening. Whole bunch of things to talk about today. We got some games on tap today. We're going to look at 3 games that are coming up today. We're going to take a close look at those games just to see how the line movement is going on those games, as well as kind of give you an idea as to what's going on as far as the professionals and in which direction they're going. If you're new to the show, I just want to explain to you that what we do primarily is try to make a better handicapper out of you. We don't make any predictions. We're just going to tell you where the line movement is going. And if you follow the line movement, you can determine where the pro money, the big money is going. And it's not a bad idea to be on their coattails. So whatever system you happen to be using right now, you understand something. Once we get by these 16 ranked teams where they're placed, we get closer and closer to the top. You're going to see the lines are going to start constricting. There may be 3 or 4 point difference, sometimes a pick 'em in some of the games, and then you're not sure which team to go on. So hopefully we could give you some information, show you where the pros are going, and if you want to kind of add that to your system, you're more than welcome to. And if not, it's just more information, more data that you could be getting into your system and working it out as well. So anyway, thank you very much for listening. One of the first things we do, as we always do on the show, we take a look at what happened the day before. We kind of look at the major games that were played yesterday, let you know what's happening in them as far as betting is concerned. That's what we're most interested in. We don't care who wins or loses. We care about what the line is. And we try to give you statistically keeping you updated as to how the underdogs are doing as opposed to the favorites, how the over-unders are doing. This is all analytical information that you could use in helping you determine who you want to bet on. So to start with, let's take a look at the National Hockey League. The underdogs barking loud and clear yesterday, 6-3. You had an upset by the Predators, who were a plus 180 on the money line. Then, of course, the Blue Jackets were a plus 170 on the money line, and the Flyers were plus 135. The Devils were plus 140. The Red Wings were plus 160. And the Ducks were plus 110. Those are all the dogs that were barking loud and clear yesterday in the National Hockey League. The unders, they went 6-3 to put the over-unders back at 500 on the season. They're at 220 and 220. Meanwhile, in hockey, you have first period unders betting as well. And yesterday they went 6-3. That improves their lead from 240 to 214, which is pretty close to 53%. Understand, in order to try to break even or to make money, you have to hit a certain percentage. That number is 52.3%. You must maintain that type of a winning average in order to be at the break-even point and moving higher. Meanwhile, in the NBA, the favorites, they did a little better. They went 4-2 straight up, but they went 3-3 against the spread. The upsets were by the Wizards, 11.5-point dogs, and plus 500 on the money line against the Jazz. The T-Wolves were 11-point dogs. They were plus 475 on the money line against the Suns. And the Magic, 4.5-point underdogs, covered in their loss to the Knicks. They lost to the Knicks, but in that particular game, they still covered, being 4.5-point dogs. Now, the dogs lead so far this season in the NBA, 297 to 289. The unders went 4-2 yesterday. The overs still lead, however. They're at 308 to 289. That's at almost 52% for the season. So that's the story with the NBA. Meanwhile, in the NCAA, UCLA, they beat Michigan State 86 to 80 in overtime. This is an NCAA first four tournament. There they go, the first four. The Bruins close as 3-point dogs at plus 130 on the money line. And of course, yesterday, as far as basketball in college was concerned, the dogs really barked loud and clear. 4 games, 4-0 against the spread. Texas Southern, a 1.5-point dog against Mount St. Mary's. Norfolk State, a 3.5-point dog against App State. They pulled those upsets. And Wichita State, a 2-point dog against Drake. They covered, even though Drake did win by 1.53 to 52. So that's the story as far as the games went in the NCAA yesterday. So that's the story, and that's what we normally do in the beginning. We recap what happened the night before, the day before, so you can bring up your records up to date as well. So we're going to take a break. We take 3 breaks during the show. They're only about a minute and a half at the most, and we come back right away. So just kind of give you an idea if you're a new listener to the show right now. So we're going to do that first break, and we come back. We're going to take a look at the 3 games that we're going to be taking a look at for tonight. And, of course, the first game that we're going to see, let me see what we're doing today. Liberty against Oklahoma State. That's at 6:25 Eastern Time. Wisconsin against North Carolina. And Rutgers against Clemson. Those are the 3 games we're going to take a close look at, see where the line movement has gone, and try to determine which direction the pros are going as well. So want to take a minute? Let's take that break. And just a reminder, you're in the Sports Wagering Zone. We'll be back right after this message. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as we're being on podcasting as well with iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, you name it. We're on most of the major podcast platforms. So thank you for listening. If you're new to the show, here's what we're doing right now. We're going to take a look at 3 games that are on tap for tonight. Checking the line movements. Very important aspect of successful handicapping, making money. Not going to make a millionaire out of you, but it's one way to try to pick winners. You follow the line movement. See which way the money is going. Is the line going up? Is it going down? Is it favoring the dog? Is it favoring the favorite? And that's how we determine where and how the big money, the pros, the guys who do this for a living, in what direction they're going. Whether you want to go with them or not, that's up to you. We're just going to give you the information. You run with it whichever way you want. Keep something in mind. They have an average percentage of about 63, maybe 65% winners. They don't win all the time. If you win 60%, you're losing 40% of the time. So kind of keep that in mind. Generally, they like contrarians. We here at the show, we're very contrarian oriented. Contrarian simply means you bet against the public. When you're a contrarian, you're betting with the house. And you know that old expression, the house always wins. So let's get started at 6:25 p.m. Eastern Time. Liberty against Oklahoma State. Now, this is a Midwest region matchup. You got the 13th seed Liberty team at 23-5 this season against the number 4 seed Oklahoma State that was 20-8. Now, Liberty has won 12 straight games. They just cruised through that Atlantic Sun tournament. They earned an automatic bid to the big dance because they won the tournament, of course. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State, they made the Big 12 Conference Championship game, but they lost to Texas 91-86. Now, looking at the line so far, it opened, Oklahoma State was a 9.5-point favorite. Cade Cunningham and the Cowboys are a real popular public play. The public loves this team. But in spite of that, the line has dropped. Oklahoma State has come down from being a 9.5 to a 7.5-point favorite. Now, some of the shops are even juicing up the plus 7.5 up to minus 115 on the money line. Now, juicing up has to do with how much money you want to lay if you want to go in a certain direction. This signals a possible going down to 7. The juice comes first, then the line moves right after that. Now, this big dip was because the pros are really coming in heavy on Liberty plus the points. What happens? They force the odds makers to adjust the number towards the dog. They want less and less people on it, right? Meanwhile, Ken Pom, he's one of the gurus as far as keeping statistics on basketball games, very well respected throughout the community. He has Liberty losing by 7 points. So by using that number, it still provides value on Liberty plus taking the numbers. Liberty will look to slow the Cowboys down with their smothering super defense. Liberty is only giving up 59.6 points per game this season. That's the third best in the nation, behind only Loyola Chicago and Houston. Now, the pros have also steamed the under, coming in heavy. We use the word steamed, means that a lot of money comes in at one fell swoop. They steamed the under, dropping that total from 142.5 down to 139.5. Remember, Liberty is one of the slowest teams in the country, averaging 63 points per game. So that's the story there. They slow it down. You slow the game down. The clock keeps going quicker. Before you know it, the game is over. Not much scoring. You want to use that as an idea. That's one of the thoughts why Liberty is their choice at this point in time. So as far as the pros are concerned, they like Liberty and taking the points. Meanwhile, at 7:10, you got Wisconsin up against North Carolina. Now, this is a Southern region, and it's a grudge match to boot, you know. You got the 9th seed Wisconsin Badgers, 17-12, and the 8th seed North Carolina Wolfpack, 18-10 this season. It's one of the tightest lines in this first round because Wisconsin started the season 12-3. But then they went just 5-9 for the rest of the season. They lost to Iowa 62-57 in that Big Ten tournament quarterfinal. Now, on the other side, North Carolina went 6-3 down towards the end of the season before they lost to Florida State 69-66 in the ACC tournament semis as well. So taking a look at the line right now, it opened North Carolina a short 2-point favorite. The public is happy to fade When we say fade, that means kind of put aside struggling Wisconsin, the Badgers. Yet, in spite of that, we've seen the line go down from 2 down to 1.5. What does this mean? It means that the smart money, the pros, are buying low on the Badgers, taking the points. Now, Ken Palm has Wisconsin winning this game by 2 points, which provides one of the biggest discrepancy plays of the first round. If you want to back the Badgers, that's the way to go. Ken Palm has Wisconsin ranked 10th, North Carolina ranked 28th. And one reason to like Wisconsin here, you have a senior team. The team is just loaded with seniors in the starting lineup. And the fact that they play in that Big Ten, which is a real tough conference, the best and the most competitive conference in college basketball, by the way. North Carolina comes from the lesser ACC. Now, the pro money has hit the under in this game, dropping the total from 139.5 to 137.5. So in this particular game, the pros are on Wisconsin. So those are the 2 games so far. We have one more game to look at. That's Rutgers against Clemson. And we're going to do that right after we do another break. We're going to take our second break. And when we come back, that's going to be the order of the business. If we have time, we're going to try to get into some tips on how to bet some of these games, just give you some thoughts and ideas. Again, we don't tell you who to bet on. We give you the information, the analytical information. We're strictly contrarian and very analytical here at the Sports Wagering Zone. We give you the information, you run with it as you see fit. So let's take that second break, and we'll be back in about a minute and a half right after these messages, and we'll be back into the Sports Wagering Zone. And welcome back. Welcome back. You're in the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo, coming to you live right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, also on Mile High Radio for our friends out in the Colorado area. So what we're doing right now is we're taking a look at 3 games that are on tap for tonight in the NCAA tournament. Going to take a look and see where the lines and how they're moving and who the pros are going to be betting on. So we looked at Liberty against Oklahoma State. That's the 6:30 game. And that looks like they like Liberty and taking the points in that game. The second game at 7 o'clock, you have Wisconsin against North Carolina. The pros do like Wisconsin, the underdog in this game as well. Now, keeping in mind that most of the time, the pros do go contrarian. Generally speaking, you're going to see them on the underdog more often than not. They will take a favorite if they find value in betting on that particular team if it happens to be the favorite in that game. So let's take a look at the 9:30 game, Rutgers against Clemson. Now, this is a Midwest regional grudge match as well. You got 10th seed Rutgers, 15-11, against the number 7 seed Clemson Tigers, 16-7. Now, Rutgers beat Indiana 61-50 in the Big Ten tournament in the second round before they lost to Illinois 90-68 in the quarterfinals. On the other side, looking at Clemson, they suffered an early second round exit in the ACC tournament. They lost to Miami 67-64, and losing straight up because of that game, they were 8-point favorites. Now, looking at the line in this game, it opened as a pick'em, or Rutgers as a 1-point favorite, depending on which book you're dealing with and depending on which part of the country you're in. Understand, when we talk about numbers here from the show, we're talking about Las Vegas numbers. Now, most of the sports books, they're pretty much in tune with what Vegas has to say, but let's just look at it this way. You live in New Jersey, you got Rutgers playing, the chances of the odds being different there are going to be different from any other place in the country where Clemson might be a favorite. Now, there is no wagering in South Carolina, so there's no move in that direction as far as that concerned. But sometimes you'll have two teams from two different states that do allow betting on the college teams, and they're going to be off maybe half a point, maybe a point. So even though we give you a general good idea as to what the line is, check with your own sports book in your area to make sure that you understand what it is there. Now, like we said, the line opened as a pick'em or Rutgers as a 1-point favorite. Now, right off the bat, the opening line really says a lot. If Clemson, if they're the highest seed and they have a better record, then ask yourself this question: why aren't they favored? And remember, there's an old saying, if it looks fishy, there's a reason behind it. The pros have sided with Rutgers, pushing the Scarlet Knights up to being a 1 to a 1.5-point favorite. Meanwhile, our friend Ken Palm has the Scarlet Knights winning by 2 points, which means that bettors who are betting on Rutgers might prefer a money line play over laying the points. So if you feel very strongly that Rutgers is your choice and you don't want to lay the points because, maybe they'll win by 1. Perhaps where you're at, you're laying 2 points or 1.5 or even a point, whatever it is, okay? You feel they're going to win? Go to the money line, because there it doesn't matter what the score is. All they have to do is win. Now, we might be looking at a low-scoring game in this game as well. The total opened at 126.5. It's been bet down to 125.5. Clemson is one of the slowest teams in the country in terms of pace also. Their pace is 64.2. So in this particular situation, it is the favorite. It's Rutgers. Although it was a pick'em, it moved to a favorite column. It's the choice of the pros, Rutgers, in your late game tonight at 9:20. So that's the story on those games for tonight. Before we go off the air, we're definitely going to go take a close look at them and take an idea as to how they're doing as well. In the meantime, let's take a look at the March Madness mania that's going on right now. It's going to be going on for the next week and a half, 2 weeks. It just happens. The only time you're going to hear anything about the NFL on this show is that if one of the major quarterbacks gets moved, like if Deshaun Watson gets traded, or maybe even Wilson from out in Seattle, if he gets traded, he gets moved, that's going to affect the futures betting as far as those teams are concerned. So unless it's something like that, we're going to just stay on course with the NCAA tournament. We may also dabble with the NIT when the NCAA is not playing their tournament there in Indiana. So in the meantime, here are some tips we've been talking about it for the past few days, because here's the way we kind of look at it. Now, it's been 2 years since sports bettors like us have had a chance to bet on March Madness. The pandemic kind of robbed us last season. But this year, we got an exciting season and a real betting bonanza coming up. Wagering on the big dance is different from going regular season. The reason? Stakes are higher. The lines are sharper. You're not going to see it right early, but you will as it progresses. The lines will be down to 3, 2, 1.5 points, like in the Rutgers game, for instance. And the betting money that's coming in is going to be much higher than during the regular season. So let's take a look at a few tips to keep in mind as you go to bet in this particular tournament. We always talk about it. We've talked about it so far. Go contrarian. Try to be a contrarian. March Madness is the best time of the year to go contrarian, betting against the public. Just look at the 4 games yesterday. All 4 games won by the Dogs. The reason for this is a lot of buzz out there. No matter which station you're listening to, no matter which program you watch, talking about buzz. They talk about the teams, who they like, what they think is going to happen, talking about the coaches. They create this excitement for the NCAA tournament. And you know what happens? It draws in the casual, everyday bettor. They may not have bet all season. You got people now that they don't care about the NFL. They don't care about baseball or NBA. They just sit and wait for March Madness to make their move. So their pockets are full of money. They're ready to go. But now they want to get in. It's fun. It's a lot of fun to play. The madness takes over. So with the public betting and it flooding the market because the ticket counts really go up, this means that the market is saturated with what we call public bias. And when that happens, you get more value than ever to go against them. Very important, because this NCAA tournament could provide even more contrarian value than normally because of this pent up demand after not betting for a year. Okay. Also, you got a lot more states that have legalized betting. You have 25 states plus that have legalized betting that didn't have it 2 years ago. So what happens? You got more people, casual bettors coming into the market, and always for the first time, what they're going to do is they're going to do what all casual bettors do. They love favorites. They love home teams. They love a lot of scoring. So the public will almost certainly gravitate toward those favorites. They're going to look at the higher ranked teams. They think to themselves, well, gee, this team's higher ranked, so it's got to be better. Okay. Big name schools. You're going to be looking at big name schools, although you're not going to have Kentucky and Duke around this year. They're going to look at teams with star players or teams that have better records. And when they do all of that, and understand something, this is a psychology that's been around for decades, and the sports books are aware of it. They play into it, and they know exactly how to handle it. So that gives you an idea of what's going on as far as being a contrarian at this time of year. Now, because of that, as a contrarian bettor, we should spend more time looking at the underdogs. Doesn't mean to bet every single one of them, but at least take a look at the game and focus a little more on the underdog. Is there a possibility that this is a good shot in here? See how the pros are going, okay? Makes the underdogs more valuable. Upsets are more prevalent than ever in the regular season during the NCAA tournament. So let's take our final break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at a few of the games that are on tap for tonight. We talked about them earlier, but just want to review them once again. In case you missed them, you got onto the show a little late and didn't hear what we were talking about. So let's take that final break. And just a reminder, we will be back into the sports wagering zone right after this. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, coming to you live from the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We're also on Mile High Radio for our friends out there in the Colorado area. And of course, we do podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Amazon Music Podcasts, we're on Spotify, Spreaker, you name it. Most of the major places we are there. You can find us any time of the day or night. So welcome to the show. So let's take a quick look once again at what we talked about most of the day, the most important news of the day, and that's how these three games shape up for tonight and how the line movement has affected the game. More importantly, how the line movement has affected in which direction the pros are going. First of all, around 6:30, you got Liberty against Oklahoma State. And in that particular game, the pros are leaning on Liberty and taking the points. Around 7 o'clock, you have Wisconsin against North Carolina. And in that particular game, once again, the pros are on the underdog Wisconsin in that game. And then finally, we're on a favorite. Rutgers against Clemson. That's around 9:20, 9:30 this evening. In that particular game, the pros are on Rutgers as we speak. So that's the look there as far as that's concerned. And one more thing we want to talk about before we say goodbye for today. We want to talk about this line movement and something that we call reverse line movement. Now, if you've listened to the show before, you should be pretty well aware of reverse line movement. We talk about it all the time. But going contrarian is really, it's a good foundation to start betting. If it only gets you halfway, there's more to it than just being a contrarian. The other important thing you have to be aware of is where the pro money is going. Some people call them the wise guys. They have all kinds of different names. This means being on the same side as the pros who bet professionally, and they have the respect of the sports books as well. One of the easiest ways to locate that pro action is with reverse line movement. That means that when your betting line moves away from the popular side and toward the unpopular side, that's the favorite or the underdog. For example, let's just say that 75% of the bets, the tickets that are coming in, are on North Carolina. Yet you see the Tar Heels go from being a 7-point favorite to a 6.5-point favorite and then to a 6-point favorite. What does it mean? We're not talking about the North Carolina game today. This is just an example. This would signal that the pro money is grabbing the points. They're on the dog in this game. Now, another move to look out for is what we call a dog to favorite flip. Now, here's what happens. If a team opens as a 1.5-point dog, but moves to a minus or a favorite 1.5-point favorite, this is a significant move. I like to say that the money line on these teams is really one of the key goals to look at. When you see that dog to favorite flip, that means the pros like this dog. They like this team as an underdog at 1.5, getting 1.5 points. And even though it moves down to being a 1.5-point favorite, they stay with it because it's being flipped from one side to the other. That's very, very important. And also be aware of fishy lines. You know, there's an old expression, if it looks too good, it almost always is. No doubt about it. Look for lines that don't make sense and stay away from them. Okay. Look for lines that don't make sense and get away. Okay. Meanwhile, we talked about Ken Pomeroy. Sharp college bettors have been going and listening to Ken Pomeroy and his projections for years. He has advanced analytics. They're the best in the game, and they're incredibly, unbelievably accurate. If a dog is getting 5 points, but Ken Pom has them losing by 3, that's a value worth looking at. The ultimate situation is that when Ken has a team winning the game, but it is getting points, that's the top of the line. Look for the biggest discrepancies and go in that particular way. So that's the story as far as today's concerned. Try to give a few tips on how to manage the situation with the NCAA, with the tournament. Understand a lot more money comes in on these games than during the regular season. So keep an eye on them. So thank you very much for listening. We talked about the 3 games on tap for tonight. If you're going to be betting, I wish you the best of luck in betting. If you're not, watch the games. There's sometimes you could, even if you're not betting on one of the games, watch the game, see if there's something you can learn from it that will carry over into a future game. You might see a weakness or maybe some strategy that they're pulling that you think will help you later on. Very, very important. That's like doing your homework, no doubt about it. So anyway, enjoy the rest of Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. We're here on Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So again, until tomorrow at 11 o'clock, I'm Chris Pardo, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We will be back again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Until then, have a very pleasant Friday, but more importantly than that, have a profitable one as well. Goodbye, everybody.